creating history on the podcast today on so many levels. The first ever time we've ever had an athlete from the great country of South Africa on this show, and somebody who I want to say I feel a real close kinship with, because this guy, a matter of years ago, if you would have said, oh, do you want to go to the Olympics? He probably would have been like, yes, absolutely. But what sport would it be in? The sport of cross-country skiing is that sport. He picked this sport up only a few years ago, fulfilling a lifelong dream of wearing the South African flag on his chest at an international level. And he's qualified. He's at least qualified the country of South Africa for the Olympics. And I'm going to say there's a 99.99999% chance that he will get that quota. It's an absolute honour to welcome off the podium one, the only Mr. Matt Smith. Matt, welcome off the podium.
Hey, awesome to be here, man. Thanks for the intro. Love it. I need you to follow me around and introduce me to crowds everywhere.
I'm getting better at these introductions because I always like to say I start off big, because in that way you get a big head, you get excited. So then when it turns shit, you're like, oh, well, at least the introduction was good, right? So, maybe I'm just getting too good at the introductions. I need to sort of, work my way up a little bit. So I don't know. So
I think it sets a good precedent for the show.
Yeah, that's what we want to do. But South Africa, I mean, we've been doing this now for 10 years, and I've never had a South African on the show, Matt. So thank you for creating history for this moment, because you've got the flag on the beanie. You're pumped. We were talking Springboks off the air. I said we don't talk about rugby in this country because we suck. Let's talk about the cricket. That's probably where it's at. But you beat us in the World Championship this year in the tests as well. So I don't have a leg to stand on right now with Australia versus South Africa. We suck against you guys.
I think we're definitely having a moment sporting-wise. I mean, obviously, off for rugby, and then, Akani Simbine in running, and now me in cross-country, believe it or not.
Exactly. You're the nation's best cross-country skier. So,
I am indeed right now, currently. I can say that I'm the national record holder.
Yep.
I'm the current champion. Whatever accolade you want to give me, I think I can claim it right now.
I just love your story on so many levels, though, because I loved a quote you gave to Olympics.com when they were sort of talking about your journey and sort of your desire to grow up and represent South Africa, that you were basically a jack of all but a master of none when it came to playing all these different sports as a kid. I mean, do you remember as a child, at what point you were like, I want to grow up and I want to represent my country in some sport, somewhere or another?
I think all young South Africans dream of being a Springbok, right? Our national rugby team, as I'm sure the Aussies think about Aussie rules and the cricketers or whatever it might be. But that's really summer sport is where it's at, right? So that was what I had dreamt of, being a Springbok. Then, obviously, as you become aware of the Olympics and all these sports that are in the Olympics, I'd always dreamt of, just to be honest, representing my country in anything. And as a jack of all, I tried every sport, from archery to, clay pigeon shooting to obviously rugby and you name it, horse riding, right? Wow. I tried it all. I was very fortunate to have a full spectrum of very, broad sport uptake as a child, but nothing really stuck other than, a bit of rugby, because that was sort of societally expected of me, right? But that was it, and as is with most sports, unless you do that from the age of 2, you are not going to make it to the Olympics, right? Bear in mind if it's an Olympic sport in that instance. So that dream died in my, mid-20s when I realized, listen, Matt, this is not going to happen for you because you haven't focused on anything. So that was really where the dream begun, and the dream stayed but died in reality.
Which I then get to right now. I mean, we're going to bounce around, I think, a little bit sort of where you are along this journey, because, you go into the Olympics essentially now with this journey and picking up the skis a few years ago. But sort of at what point does kind of that hunger return? Like, I mean, because we'll touch on sort of what got you into skiing, of course, but I mean, you're in your 20s, but does it ever go away? Let's rephrase that question. Did it ever sort of completely get extinct, or was it just dormant? Was it just one of those volcanoes that is going to erupt at one point?
No,
eventually?
It was exactly that. It was sitting there quietly in the back of my mind, always existing in any new sport I tried as well. I remember when I really got into running, which is sort of actually my kind of favorite sport, and I think I'm best biokinetically driven to do. In my late 20s, I started really properly running. I did my first marathon at 27 or 8, I forget. And that's really when it began again. You start to think, especially when I started triathlon, I think triathlon is a sort of bit of a wormhole, right? Everybody thinks they're going to be the top age grouper and go to Kona at the World Championships. So I begun in the triathlon. I would actually say that triathlon really reignited the fire, because it is something, you get so consumed in it. It's, it's just like CrossFit, right? All you can talk about is CrossFit. In that case, for me, it was triathlon. and obviously then also living in Norway, we had the emergence of Christian Blumenfeld and Gustav Iden, who are now the kind of world champions and the goats of cross country, of triathlon. triathlon. So I was around a lot of greats and have had the pleasure to meet them, which is a fun story as well. But that's really triathlon, I have to give credit to, reignited the fire of this maybe false belief that I could represent my country at something, maybe because they have age group categories. So it kind of gives you this, you can actually be the best South African between 50 and 60 or 31 and 33, right?
Yeah.
So I think that credit to them for reigniting that fire.
Which, because it's interesting you say that, because like by saying representing South Africa, you touched on obviously the Springbok desire, but I mean, this wasn't just an Olympics aspiration. This is just representing South Africa in anything essentially, is it?
Yeah, for sure. You're just the dream of stepping out with RSA on a shirt, Republic of South Africa, and just being seen as someone who's athletically capable to do so, right? Carry the flag. I don't know why and where it comes from, but, I'm someone who has these weird dreams sometimes of crossing a finish line in first place still. Right. I wake up in that moment of crossing the finish line. Sometimes I have these strange, dormant thoughts in my mind that I still might even win a medal at this coming Olympics. Right. When I know that's completely not going to happen.
Hey, we've got a very famous speed skater who did win a medal after everyone fell over. So I'm just saying, you never say never.
And that is the other reoccurring dream I have, where everybody just falls in front of me and I just skate past them on the side because I'm at the back and everyone forgot about me. And then I just go, shoop, all right, thanks guys, I'll take that gold. That's in reality the only way it's going to happen.
But again, it can happen. That's the beauty of it. But I love that.
And it has.
It has, exactly. I just love hearing that though, Matt, because I joke to you off air that, I do this show because I have this, just live through all the guests we have on this show. But I mean, similar dream. I've always sort of wanted to wear the, not RSA. I mean, it'd be nice, sure, it's a great country, but I'd prefer Australia probably on my chest. But it's sort of, it doesn't go away, does it? Even though age is probably telling you it should. So I kind of like that sort of level of desire. When it came to the running, sort of what was about that sort of picked up? You said you get addicted to it, but I mean, kind of what was it about running that really spurred you on to try that out?
If I'm honest with you, I was not quite at 30 yet, but I was approaching that. And I thought to myself, I haven't run a marathon. And that seems to be something that an athletic person has to do. And I'm only getting older. And these marathon, runners tend to peak in their early 30s. And I had sort of 5 years from that. I think I was 27 maybe. And I thought to myself, well, if not now, when, right? I'm at my prime right now. Every day I'm moving away from that probably. So that's really why I got into the running. Also the fact that my mother is a runner. My mother runs, 10K a day. She's almost 70 now and she's a bit of she's a beast. So I'd always had that sort of influence from her, but never really, got into it at school. I did track and field as everyone does, but never really lent into running other than being, above average, maybe, versus the proper kinos at school. So, there wasn't really any sort of leading indicator that, Matt, this is the sport for you. You should double down on this. Because like I said, I tried them all, became average at best in every single one of them. But I think also importantly, and most importantly, I enjoyed them. So sports has been something, if you had met me 15, 25 years ago, you would see me doing very similar things today that I was then. I've always been athletic. I think at school in the yearbook, it said something like, most likely to be a professional athlete, not because I was good at anything, just because I was persistent enough to not, to push through the hard times. So sports has always been part of my life.
You know what it reminds you of? And I'm going to, there's always a movie we always connect to on the show. And it's not just because you're a winter athlete, Matt. It's just any athlete. Cool Runnings. It's, it's the life Bible for an Olympic podcast. We'll get to that. But this is actually reminding me a little bit of Eddie the Eagle. If you've seen that movie, where at the beginning, he's so gung-ho about trying to become an Olympian, right? He's got his little Olympic Bible and he's like, all right, I've tried that sport. He's ticking them all off. And then he eventually discovers ski jumping. So to me, I'm picturing young Matt kind of like, all right, archery, nah, not for me. Horse riding, nah, not for me. Springboks, nah, not for me. Running, we'll give that a go. Oh, what's this cross-country skiing thing? Like, I mean, so when we get to, your movie, obviously, this is kind of, we need to have young Matt Smith doing this sort of thing, right?
I'll tell you a fun story. I was in a sauna at a fancy hotel in Oslo, and the guy, Taggart Edgerton, who plays Eddie the Eagle, was in there.
Oh, wow.
He was obviously filming something in Oslo, right? And I was just there, after work with someone. And he was sitting next to me. And, we're naked in the sauna. And I thought, is this the moment I tell him, hey, mate, psst, you're going to play me in the next movie, because I wanted to say it to him. Hey, buddy, FYI, you're going to play me in the next movie. But I realized, listen, like this guy is famous. He's an actor. He's finally naked in a dark sauna. The one refuge from, people. And then some guy recognizes him and points at him and says, "Hey, nice dick. By the way, you're going to play me next." So I didn't. I held back from it, but I really wanted to. And since then, I've actually spoken to the real Eddie.
Oh,
Eagle,
wow. Okay.
Because I'm trying to get him as a guest on my podcast.
Yeah.
And we are in dialogue, and testament to just reaching out to people. Sometimes they respond, and I hit him up on Instagram and he responded.
Wow.
I was like, "Hey, listen, dude, I'm the new you. I'd love to have you on my podcast."
Well, I think you just go one better and get Taron on, get them all naked. Just have the naked podcast. Sit in the sauna
We'll
in
do it in
Oslo.
the sauna.
Yeah,
exactly.
No
That's
one's
on brand,
done that
to be
before.
honest, for the Nordics.
Yeah, exactly. they love their saunas, don't they, in that part of the world? I know a few Finnish people, all they talk about is saunas. But I mean, what is it about Scandinavia and saunas?
I mean, obviously it's cold, right? And it's a place where, to be honest with you can hide away because people don't like people up here. No, that's not true. People tend to be quite,
Reserved?
not introspective. Introspective and respectful of personal space. Ironically, in a sauna, you're naked next to people. So I don't know how that computes, but still, at least it's maybe, less condoned socially to talk in a sauna. But no, I mean, actually I'm in the one Nordic country that doesn't have a big sauna culture. Sweden has a bigger sauna culture. Obviously for the Finnish, that is their thing. Estonia, all the Baltics, but Norway actually doesn't, Iceland has the thermal pools and things. Norway actually doesn't have a big sauna culture. It's kind of coming in now, just more with popularity with, the exposure therapy when you go cold, hot kind of thing. But contrast therapy, sorry. But I love saunas personally, and we can get into that. I'm building one in my new home.
Oh, wow. Well, actually, you might be able to answer a question because, as you touched on, you lived in Norway for a little bit, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
We're getting a little bit scared of the Norwegians on this podcast, Matt, because we always associate them as being really good with the winter sports. But obviously, as you touched on with things like triathlon, we know track and field, they're getting pretty good at the summer sports too, Matt. Like, what's going on in Norway? Why are they all of a sudden just good at everything and not just winter sports?
I'll tell you what's going on. It's a topic that I've tried to dive into and understand myself because I have a 6-month-old son who will go through the system here. I live in Oslo, Norway. My partner, she's Norwegian. So listen, it actually comes down to what I just said about the fact that I have always enjoyed the sports that I've done. That was really sort of the first thing for me was enjoyment as opposed to trying to get a podium. Maybe I should have. Then I would have been to the Olympics earlier, maybe. But in Norway, I believe it was, and I don't quote me exactly on this, sort of 25 years ago or something like this, but it was after, I think it might have been 88, the Olympics or something like that. So maybe a bit longer than 25 years ago. 37. They didn't win anything. It was the first Olympics that, they just weren't dominating in anything. So the country was like, listen, we need to do something from the grassroots development level. And most nations realize this. The Olympics is typically a sort of a leading indicator. If you host it, you're going to have a grassroots initiative. And obviously they were hosting in 1994 in Lillehammer. So they had sort of, so many years to maybe not get any Olympians then, but they could probably encourage the system to be inspired by those at that Olympics and then create a new wave of athletes. But they introduced a school system. And again, don't quote me on the name, but it's something like for the love of sport and they eliminated point taking up until the age of, I think 13 or 15, as in they didn't take score. So you played a football match. Oh, goal. Who won? Who knows? No one counted the goals. Everybody wins, right? Sounds very Swiss, kind of everybody's a winner. But what it did is it encouraged enjoyment first. And then they also didn't push people like you tend to do. Oh, this kid's really fast in the wing. They should be a winger. So you get forced into, and retrofitted into something that you might not evolve to being because, you might grow differently. Your biokinetics might change as you grow. But in Norway, they just let the kids just have fun and find sports that they enjoyed first. And, if you look at right now, we have Ødegaard, Haaland, two of the best football players in the world. They came through a system of just we just go and play, have fun. And if you look at the Norwegian skiers as well, my coach, for example, Ola, he was, before he became a professional skier and now a coach, he was the best, there's not even a category for this, but they have one here. He was the best freestyle cross-country skier. That doesn't exist. What it meant was he could do some tricks because he played as much as a kid.
Wow.
So he said they'd do these national championships of 300 athletes, not racing 10K, 5K, 50K, doing jumps and tricks on skis that aren't meant to be jumped and tricked.
Wow.
Simply showing that the more you play. And then obviously naturally that made him an excellent skier because in any tricky snow, he had balance on a pinky, So back to the story of Norway and why it's so dominant. They created this culture of have fun first and we'll talk about performance after that. Only when the kids maybe went through puberty and then, maybe their bodies were a bit more robust and they had settled into a rhythm and a biokinetical structure. And then they could say, hey, this guy, Haaland, he's actually really, really good footballer. So we should now put the weight of the second wealthiest nation in the world behind him. And, we're going to fund his development. So they have these things called Olympiatoppen in Norway. So there's one on the east and the west and the north and the south and the middle. And it's basically a state-funded Olympic development center that's multi-sports. And if you look at a lot of the science that's come out of Norway, there's a lot of science that's come out of sport. A lot of it's come out of Norway. We talk about the 4x4 method, right? This VO2 max growth method. There's a new one I'm on right now. All developed through Norway because there's been funding and research and doubling down. So you think 5 million people, how do they have world champions and Olympic gold medalists in triathlon? Not one, but two of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's because they created this environment where they have a small pool to pick from, but maybe they let that pool find the right sport and then they would double down on that sport, not just Nordic sports. So that's why we've seen such dominance in the Nordics and specifically Norway, in the Olympics, both summer and winter.
Fascinating. So this is why we get people like you on the show, Matt. Like, who would have thought the answer to my Norwegian question we've been asking for years now is going to come from a South African? But there you go. Like, you've ticked all the boxes here. That's fascinating.
And who would have thought that, quote unquote, from BBC, the ski-fluencer would be South African? Exactly. Mr. EdTech, I'm educating people about skiing, came from a South African who only started 3 years ago.
Do you prefer ski-fluencer? Oh, it is very much so. Do you prefer ski-fluencer or skibok? Like, what do you prefer?
I prefer Snowbok.
Snowbok, sorry.
Let's go with Snowbok, yeah.
Snowbok, yes. I like it. How many nicknames do you have now? Like, there seems to be a few going.
What do you can add to that, I'm sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I need probably to come up with a bit more than with that. But
let the audience decide now in the comments somewhere.
Exactly. Vote down there. What can we else call Matt? Have you been Doctor Who? I mean, there was a Doctor Who called Matt Smith, wasn't there?
I'll tell you a fun story. So my name is Matt C. Smith, right? Why do you think I put the C there?
Because of Doctor Who?
Because of Doctor Who. Because when you Google me,
I
got to think about SEO.
Yep.
Got to think about search engine optimization.
Exactly.
Anyway, that's one thing I advocate for, athletes seeing themselves as personal brands as well. Yep. Because, if you're in a sport trying to monetize yourself, it's very difficult there's no, discoverability of yourself. So anyway, we can get into that. That's something I'm quite passionate about since I had a career in entrepreneurship before.
It's funny you say that because there is actually another Australian sports journalist called Ben Waterworth, who I like to call the more famous Ben Waterworth because he's on like Fox Sports and, he's done a bit better for himself. But we worked at the same sort of organization for a while. So his email address was, and I'm not giving away his email address because he's not there anymore. So spam him, whatever. I get his emails anyway, so spam him for once. Ben.Waterworth at whatever the news organization was. Mine then was Ben.Waterworth2 at, and I'm thinking I hate being called Benjamin, my full name, but just at least at that instance, put Benjamin.Waterworth because then easy. Every time you gave your email address out, there are two of you, are you? Yes.
And I'm the second.
Yeah, I'm the second. And I often get his hate mail. I often will get probably at least every couple of weeks, he'll write some article that people hate. And then I'll get, you're shit. You shouldn't be a journalist. And I'm like, thanks for your feedback. I'll pass it on to the real Ben Waterworth you hate. Have a nice day. So, it's
good
fun.
on you there. You're doing his admin for him as well. You're really on number 2 there. We need to fix this. Maybe I just use the initial example, like you're sort of you're saying with that. Ben C.
Ben C. Sounds better than my actual middle name, so I'll take that there. Your journey though into cross country skiing traces back to a chance meeting. You're in triathlon, and you meet a Mexican triathlete come cross country skier. Tell us about your meeting with Alan. And this bromance, because of all the videos I'm watching, I love this bromance with you and Alan. He's like, he just seems like an incredible human being alongside yourself.
Yeah, he really is. And it is very much a bromance for sure. So exactly. So long story short, I move to Oslo, Norway, end of 2022. Winter is coming. No longer can run and swim and cycle outside because I'm not brave enough to do that on ice. I mean, can you blame me? And I think to myself, well, listen, I'm an athletic person. What do they do here? Well, cross-country skiing is the nation's favorite pastime. It really is. They as soon as you walk, you're on skis because that's all you can do at the cabins in winter, which is, half the year, right? So you have to lean into winter. So instead of hibernating, as I really wanted to do, I had to lean in.
That's not an Olympic sport yet.
It should be, though. In the Nordics, it'd be very good.
I might have a chance of that. I'm pretty good at hibernating too, actually. So, put that on the list, IOC. If you're listening, Kirsty, come on.
Come on, Kirsty, sort it out. So So I have my first lesson in cross-country skiing, and it's not by a Nordic person, it's by a Mexican. And Alan, a lovely guy, he gives me a light bulb moment. And I think to myself, he tells me how, he's only started skiing a year really before that as well. And he's now representing Mexico in FIS, the International Ski Federation, sort of the league you need to compete in to qualify for the Olympics effectively, right? And I just have this light bulb and I think to myself, hold on a minute. I'm 32 at the time, kind of 32 years of wanting to represent my country are flashing back in my eyes. And I go, oh my God, is this the opportunity that I've been waiting for? Guess what? You can peak later, friends. And so I do some digging. I research, okay, firstly, is there anyone representing us? No. I'm not the first, though. There has been one other.
I was going to bring him up. Don't worry. We keep going.
Yeah. Nice guy.
Yep.
In 2006 and 2010. And then I think to myself, hold on a minute. When's the next Olympics? Right. And I find out, okay, it's 3 years away, basically. And then I do some more research. Could I just maybe qualify for the Olympics in what actually is 2 years? Because you have to qualify a year before at the World Championships. So actually I had 2 years from zero to qualify for the Olympics. I speak to some professional coaches in Norway. I rang Holmenkollen Training Lab, which is where I train now. And I say, hey, listen, this is who I am. I'm a decent athlete. I mean, I'm not world class, but I've been athletic my whole life. Is it realistic and viable? And they said, listen, 1 in 100 million chance, but if you put 2 years of time, effort, and money into it, there is a chance. So I decide that that's enough of a positive indicator. I need to go for it, and that's where the journey began. I'll leave it there.
And with Alan though, so Alan Corona, so he had a similar path, like as a triathlete, had he sort of just made the switch? Kind of what switched him over to cross country skiing?
What switched him over is same thing as me, not wanting to run and cycle on ice when it's 6 months of winter here, basically. And, they don't have a big swimming pool infrastructure indoor here. So, you're not going to swim anyway. So he basically, as a way to assimilate to Norwegian culture, he's married to a Norwegian, he decided to start cross-country skiing, and he was taken out by a British girl, actually. So, there's something to do with these small nations or non-Nordic nations helping one another out, or sort of integration, if you will. So that was his story and his journey. And to be honest, I mean, he at that point when I met him, I'm sure he'd thought about the Olympics, but that wasn't something he spoke about or was, actively pursuing. He was just enjoying cross-country skiing and getting better and having the odd chance to race in a different country for Mexico. Again, at that point, he was terrible, as was I. He was a little bit less terrible than me, but that was the beauty. It was the blind leading the blind at the beginning, which was kind of a beautiful kind of setting for a bromance, right? For us to sort of develop. And he was my inspiration then. He was my coach for a period of time. And then I needed to trade in a Mexican coach in cross-country skiing for a Norwegian, as you'd expect. But still to this day, the beautiful kind of red thread to the story is we qualified next to each other at the World Championships for the Olympics, number 38 and 39 in the qualification race. So that was a beautiful story. Although one thing that I have a bit of a pain point with, Ben C. Waterworth.
Thank you. Yes.
We're going to get the branding going.
We will.
Is that, obviously he was the thing I was chasing really, because he's the only realistic person I could beat at that level. And in that qualification race, I was beating him by 50 seconds.
Wow. Okay.
Until 50 seconds, in a 24-minute race. That's substantial.
Decent. Not bad.
And couple places. Yep. And I very dramatically made for TV, Eddie the Eagle. I wish there was cameras on me because this would have been great for the movie. I broke a pole in cross-country skiing, which for anyone who knows the sport, and if you don't, that's kind of game over, right? Unless you can get a pole from a coach on the course very quickly. I managed to recover and I got a pole 2 minutes later, but I lost that 50 seconds and he ended up beating me by 5 seconds.
Damn.
So that's my only pain point. So in the Olympics, watch out. Mexico will be beaten by South Africa.
Come back. Well, because I'm trying to literally think of a sport where Mexico and South Africa are rivals in. I can't off the top of my head. So maybe it's cross-country skiing.
I think it has to be. It'll be the first.
Yeah. What would be the closest sport that you guys would, I don't know, Australian football? I have no clue. What's a sport where maybe, because you're obviously going to kick their ass in things like rugby and cricket. They'll probably kick your ass in soccer and
probably football. Yeah, football.
Yeah,
they kick our ass there.
Yeah. So cross-country skiing's it. Traditional rivals, Mexico and South Africa. There you go. You've just got to claw back
standard rivalry.
50 seconds, right? Battle of the ages. That's what we want,
battle of the Southern Hemisphere in a way.
Here I was thinking I'm, watching Canada, USA in hockey, but bugger, I want Mexico, South Africa and cross country. That's where it's at.
That's where it's at.
Going on there. But I mean, to qualify alongside him though, with that journey, I mean, we're obviously going to get to the moment where you do qualify, Matt. But I mean, that must make it extra special, despite the fact he beat you by 5 seconds though. But you've kind of achieved this dream together.
Yeah, no, that really made it special. And, people always talk about it's all about the journey. It's about the journey. And I actually add something to that, an overlay of it's not just about the journey. It's what you make out of the journey because you have to be active in it. You can't be passive. You can't just sit in the journey and, let it come past you. You have to make things happen for yourself. So, being part of this, the people I've met along the way, I'll tell you a really unique thing that I've discovered early on in this journey was a WhatsApp group called Team Avalanche. Have you heard of Team Avalanche?
I have read about this and you're preempting one of my questions, but please get to it because I want to hear about Team Avalanche. Yes.
So Team Avalanche is a WhatsApp group, friends, which has about 54 nations in it, all of which non-Nordic and ski traditional nations. So we have Saudi Arabia, Tanzania now. We actually don't have the Aussies in there because you guys are too good. But we have all these.
First time someone said that about us in cross country skiing, Matt. So we appreciate that. Sevi and Phil, they're loving it right now.
Yeah, they're definitely carrying the flag well, putting you guys in a great light. But so we have this little WhatsApp group, and credit where credit's due to Nick Lau from Trinidad and Tobago, who set it up and was a way to sort of, crowdsource knowledge and experience, trying to qualify for the Olympics and other things. So I was added to this group early on, and that has been such a wonderful community to be part of because whilst we don't have the big wax trucks, which you need to have good fast skis, we don't have all this accreditations for people to support us. Together, collectively, we're helping. And right now there's a crazy guy called Eddie from the Philippines, who's all of a sudden come out of nowhere, trying to qualify. And he's in Finland right now posting, his race recaps, and we're all sort of commenting on his technique because I think the poor guy can't afford to get technique coaching. So, we really are sort of crowdfunding coaching, crowdfunding knowledge, even skis and poles if it's needed. So it's been an incredible sort of journey to be part of and learn of all these little communities.
I love hearing that because you brought up the sort of the wax trucks. We've had some athletes on recently and I learnt about this, amazing kind of almost like a pit crew sort of Formula One style that these big nations have, which I had no clue about until recently. So I love the fact that you've got this little community bonding together of kind of this. And I guess that also, does it spur on a big, deep down rivalry? You talk about wanting to beat, Mex, but is there like a mini championship then of the 54 countries? Like, you've got your own mini Olympics. Who's going to be like the podium of Team Avalanche, essentially?
Topically, this podcast is called, Off the Podium, right? And I have never been on a podium apart from once. And that was a small nation cup, which we created as part of another race. Alan, to Alan's credit again, wrote to the race organizers and said, hey, listen, we're all competing in this race. Can we also have like a little side ceremony? I'll bring some prizes, a Kit Kat or whatever. And they said, hey, we love this. Don't worry. We'll do a proper ceremony for you and we'll rank you in the official list. You could have your own it was called an unofficial small nation cup. Wow. So that's the only podium I've ever had. Who was first? Alan was second, I was third, and I think the Aussie was first. Bentley. Bentley was first.
Look at us winning a gold in cross country skiing. We'll take it. Tell you what, you tell me if you got a chance. You send me the 54 countries. If it's, you got an available list. If not, just send us some. And then during the Olympics, when it comes to your event, not only will we talk about, cool, Norway win gold, yep, good for them, but we will then fully promote. We will do a graphic on that day of the podium of the 50 of Team Avalanche, who gets it there to celebrate who comes out on top, to really make it out there that of these 54 small nations, and we will promote it because you might be a gold medalist on that day.
I'm very much might be, and that is definitely a goal to sort of, and just to give some context, we're fighting for the bottom 20 places probably. Because
we're going to celebrate all of those. We're going to celebrate.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. And not all of those 54 have qualified, right? So I have my spot. I've got South Africa's quota spot, and I'm going. That's guaranteed. So I've got that spot. Mexico's got their spot as well. There's a new allocation as quota spots come out soon, and then hopefully a few more of them will come. Peru, for example. But in reality, we're fighting for the bottom 20 places.
But that's what we like to celebrate because it's interesting, I guess, on that journey of nations such as South Africa, Australia, traditional summer countries, when it comes to the Winter Olympics. I mean, I remember growing up watching the Winter Olympics, and just prior to we started winning medals, it was sort of, we'd be celebrating a 9th, a 10th, and sort of, very limited coverage in this country at all. But then gradually we start to get medals, and then gradually, the coverage, and right now the promotion here in Australia is actually pretty big for a Winter Olympics, which is nice to see. But I mean, just on that, actually, I'm going to backtrack slightly. Growing up, when you're a kid in South Africa and you're watching things like the Olympics, how much coverage does the Winter Olympics get? Because I believe South Africa weren't back into the Winter Olympics until 94. Sporadic athletes sort of throughout that. Was there any coverage of the Winter Olympics in South Africa growing up?
If I'm honest, I don't remember seeing any. And, I from the age of 8, so 98, I was living in the UK. So hence my British accent. My family left. So not that I remember. And, I think I'm the 12th athlete to ever qualify for South Africa, 12th or 16th, depends who you ask. We've only ever sent, I think, 11 athletes to 7 games or something like that in history. So no, it's, we don't have a winter sports culture at all. And, it's not something I expect to see developing either, but I think in general, it's cool to see South Africans in a sport that you don't typically see. And I think it's a great advert for South Africa. I think much like the Aussies as well. And just side note, the Aussies are probably one of the most loved nation in cross-country skiing. Just from character-wise, you guys are very appreciated. I'd put South Africa as maybe a number 2 then. But, I see that as a goal of mine to leave this sport better than I met it when I arrived in it, be it through what I'm doing on social media, be it through how I advocate for athletes to, monetize themselves and live from what they love, but also how I like to just shine South Africa in a good light by being, friendly, approachable, and add value as opposed to take from the ecosystem.
Which I mean, we've had several cross-country skiers on the show over the years, and I always comment on the Australian side that they do look like they just have such a camaraderie. They're always having fun. I know in the lead up to Beijing, they were releasing, viral clips of them just doing, whacked out shit in Beijing and all this sort of stuff. And Phil Bellingham on recently, obviously, talking about skimo, but still talking about the cross-country skiing. We had Rosie Fordham on recently about her sort of success in the junior level and what that's done for the sport. And Sevi, several years ago, such a character. And I'm glad that the Australian sort of perspective and attitude comes across to other countries, because we're just chill. We're having fun. I think deep down, we're never going to, be on a podium with the Norwegians and that, but they don't care. They seem to just, go out there, do their best and have fun along the way. And it's all about fun, as you keep saying in this interview.
Yeah. And they are doing a great job in the sport as well. They're actually getting better and better and better, finishing in top 30s from a small nation. I mean, they definitely probably are leading the Small Nation Cup, if you want to look at it from that perspective.
Let's go Australia. There we go. That's what we want. I mean, just on that history, I had to look up sort of where South Africa's winter athletes had come from. So alpine skiing, figure skating, skeleton, short track, and then you touched on him, Oliver Crass, 2-time Olympian in cross-country skiing. So South Africa have had the one athlete in the sport before. You said you've met him. I mean, is he someone that you sort of talk to about the journey, kind of like in sort of that level of what it takes to get to that? Is he somebody you can lean on at all?
Not for any reason other than, I have reached out to him, and I'm getting him on my podcast as well. So he just wrote back to me just the other day, but I should look at the message on LinkedIn. When I first started this journey, I found him because I couldn't find him on socials, but I knew about him, of course. And I pinged him on LinkedIn, basically saying something of something like, I'm going to be the next you. 3 years ago. Honestly, it was right at the beginning. And, I never heard back from him. Maybe he doesn't check LinkedIn. And he lives in Germany, obviously. They have their own LinkedIn, Zing, I think it's called. Anyway, and eventually...
Zing. Right, okay.
Yeah. Zing, yeah.
Zing, yeah.
We don't need an English-speaking one. Add me on Zing. And he recently reached out to me, actually, because I think when I qualified, he learnt about me, and then started to follow me. And he made a post, I think, during when I was competing at the World Championship, saying, it was 16 years ago to this day that was the last time that a South African stood out on a World Championship. Today is the next time.
Wow.
So then we've had a dialogue since, and just literally last week he kind of confirmed joining the podcast in December sometime. So but he hasn't. Yeah, he hasn't been a source of a fountain of knowledge for me yet. Maybe going to the Olympics he can be.
I've got to say, like, I don't know who your national broadcaster is of the Olympics there in South Africa, but it's got to be like one of these things that surely there's a piece they're going to get you in studio together and have like a one-on-one interview. I mean, that's just what we do in Australia. Like, let's get Stephen Bradbury with today's short track speed skater, for example. Like, come on, South Africa's Channel 9, whoever you are, let's do it.
I agree. Shout out to you if you're listening. Please get us on, because South Africa doesn't know about me that well, actually. And I expect things to change in the coming weeks because I'm doing a bunch of media and TV towards the Olympics, of course, because I was the first to qualify. So I was the first of us to qualify for this Olympics. Now we've had a second athlete in skiing, in downhill skiing to qualify, Lara, and I hope that they will have 3 others. One in snowboard, one in moguls, and one in skeleton.
Fantastic.
And then we'll be the largest team that South Africa have ever sent to an individual winter games. And I would really want it to be us 5 because I'm not sure if you know the cultural narrative around the big 5.
Oh, the animals, of course, yes.
Animals, right?
Yeah,
so I think there's a you're a media guy. There's a cool bit of branding there. I think if we with the famous 5, the big 5.
Well, what would you take? Which of the 5 would you want to take on board then? As the animal?
Well, yeah. So a reminder, I think it's isn't it like the elephant, the buffalo, it's
lion, right?
Is it a leopard, lion, and something else?
Hippo? I don't know. Is it hippo one?
Hippo, I think you're right. Yeah. I mean, good question. What do you think? Maybe I'll throw it back at you, Ben.
Oh, I mean, I'd go the lion,
no
right?
offense.
Let's go the lion.
Yeah. Okay. Fair play. I'll take it.
The male lion to me, like, they get a bit lazy. Like you talked about hibernating, right? So you've got a bit of that Scandinavian in you, but then they're also very like, ferocious and out there and, go the lion. Go to lion.
I have the hair for it, to be honest.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I think the lion would make sense. Yeah. I have this kind of mane going on, this blonde kind of fluffy hair, very faf de cluck.
Yeah.
Or a honey badger, maybe. That's more of a topical reference for you guys.
Honey badger, I like that sort of thing. Does that then make it a little bit harder for you to become the flag bearer? One in 5 is a little bit less than 1 in 1, Like, I mean, great to have all the 5 there, but all of a sudden you're like, fuck, I could have been a flag bearer now. I've got to fight off 4 other people.
But you know what? Let's talk about the flag bearer for a second because, 3 years and a day ago was, and actually, you know what? It's really topical we're talking today as well, because the 17th of November today, the idea came to me on the 17th of November, 2022.
Happy anniversary.
Actually, genuinely. Thank you. Because it was the day after my birthday. And I remember that I was on a podcast last night and I said that. I was like, hold on a minute. Tomorrow is actually the anniversary of the idea when I started to do the Googling and the research because, birthdays are a great point for reflection and focusing on new goals, right? So that's when the idea was born for me. And the idea was, could I qualify for the Olympics, right? That was the goal. And I've achieved that goal as of February. And then, I'm going in 91 days or so.
You're not counting though, so that's fine.
Oh, definitely counting. and now we're adding a new goal, have to be the flag bearer kind of thing, right? So I was like, my goal was to win. It's so representative of the human condition where it's like, now what's the new goal? I have to get a podium or I have to be the flag bearer. Listen, I would be grateful to be the flag bearer, but that wasn't the goal. The goal was to go and I'm going. So, I've already achieved what I wanted to achieve and now I'm going to do the best job I can to be happy, healthy, and the best athlete I can on the day.
I'm going to say this, Matt. We have a very good track record on this show of our guests becoming flag bearers. I don't know our percentage, but the last Winter and Summer Olympics, both our male and female flag bearers in both Beijing and Paris were guests of this show, having been on beforehand. So I'm just saying that
you can make it happen for me.
You've got a chance.
You have some pull, don't you?
Absolutely, we have pull.
Who do you really know? Who's really behind the podcast?
This is why Thomas Bach is next to us, my friend, because that man,
I noticed.
That man right there, he's just our influence on us on so many levels of that. Just before we get to the moment again of you actually qualifying, just one question around when you pick up cross country skiing, because you've obviously got different lengths. There's, your very heavy 50 Ks, you've got your 10 Ks, you've got your classical, you've got your freestyle. There's skiathlon. Do you have to all of a sudden just focus on one given that you've got like a 3-year or 2-year goal, obviously, to do that? Is it a matter of, okay, I pick my lane, stick to it? Do you give a try in each and see where you stand? How does that work when you decide what you're going to qualify for?
Well, it was kind of set for me because the qualification race was a 7.5 kilometer classic race.
Right.
So I knew that. I had 2 years to get good enough in that discipline. However, in the 2 years running up to that, there's 2 qualification criteria. I won't bore you with the details, but you have to qualify in the World Championships. That's one criteria. That's the hardest criteria because it's one race, one shot, one opportunity, 2 years away.
Bit Eminem.
And then the next one's it's 8 Mile all the way, right?
Yeah.
Mum spaghetti, you name it. Which is also topical because it's carb based, but let's pause that for a sec. But the reality is, I knew I had one race in a discipline, and not to bore everyone, but there's two disciplines in cross country skiing. So there I was thinking I was starting one sport. I was starting two. Okay. And then you throw in the summer side of it, roller skiing, that's a third sport.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I knew I had to be good at that by then, right? So obviously that was a focus, but also the second criteria is you have to get a certain points, in the overall kind of ranking, yearly rankings, right? So, and that's under a certain threshold of points. So, and then when you race, there are two disciplines. So basically, you increase your chances of getting the other criteria points if you do both disciplines instead of just doing one discipline, and then you half the number of races you can do because they evenly spread them out 50-50, skate style, classic style. And then obviously the distances, of course. Well, if I'm training for a 50-kilometer 2-hour race, when actually on the day I'm doing a 25-minute race, it's like a 10K runner versus a marathon runner, right? Yeah. There's different speeds involved, different systems, different engines, right? So I have been very specifically made it. That was the croissant catching up with me,
and the
dry
shoes.
mouth.
Yeah, a bit of a...
And
yeah.
So I really focused on specificity with my training, right? Where I focused on the race that I would do. And right now that is exactly what I'm doing for the Olympics. It's a 10-kilometer skate race because in the World Championships, I had to qualify in classic, but in the Olympics, it's skate. So you really actually have to master both.
And have they now? We post on our page. We're trying to do sort of the history of every event that's currently on the Olympic schedule. So we're posting the previous winners of each of the event. And from memory, the 10K event in the men's, is it returning to an older format that used to exist at the Olympics? Because based on our medal graphic, it was like events happening like the 90s, but then they changed it and they're bringing it back. Like, is that true? Like, it's been a bit all over the place with how they've sort of done it in the Olympics, the 10K?
I was hoping you could tell me.
Okay, yeah. Well, we can sit here and pretend our knowledge, but
let's just, why not? Let's make it up.
I think it's one of these ones, though, I think that sort of so many of the events in the Olympics sort of will bounce around in terms of let's try this out, let's try that. But I think it's sort of based on what I remember when we did that and we looked into what was currently on the schedule and what wasn't. This was like a return to a classic format. There are, cross-country skier people out there who can probably correct us. Norwegians are listening to this, throwing their skis at the speakers right now. But I will say, we've mentioned him a few times, actually. When we posted, literally the day of recording this, I posted that graphic, and we always put a tag like, who do you think will win the medals in Milano Cortina? And funnily enough, Mr. Sevi DeCampo actually did comment saying, I think Matt Smith will take it out. Happy birthday, by the way. So
he tagged me this morning, right?
Yeah, so he's rooting for you,
legend.
Matt. Yeah.
There you go. Oz is behind South Africa. Who would have thought? Yeah,
exactly. It's cross-country skiing, right? We're not overly scared, particularly if you say we're better than you. So we'll take that.
That's fair.
What was that moment like, though? Through all the last couple of years of everything that you sort of made this decision, went through this journey, but that moment you've touched on a few times when you actually got that spot, when you qualified for the Olympics. What was that moment like?
I'll give everyone a bit of context. So I'm at the World Championships, right? And the race's interval start, meaning you don't know where everyone's finished until the last person's finished, right? Mm-hmm. Because obviously they could be quicker than you. And then all of a sudden you're in it and then you're out of it, right? So you have to, and I was, I went out in the first 20 and there was sort of 90. I forget how many people were racing. So I finish, and I'm in the top 10 at the point, and then obviously as faster people come in, I drop into the top 20, and then I drop into the top 30. You're like, oh,
just freeze frame the top 10, right? You just you put a still image.
Take
of
a photo now.
Yeah,
exactly.
Top 10,
that's my LinkedIn profile.
There we go, done.
Straight on Tinder. Yeah. Don't tell my my
I didn't hear that. I didn't hear that.
No. So I am there, in the sort of finish area, and bear in mind, right? In the run up to this, I had a lot of publicity because I've been very active on social media. And during the race, my friends who were watching at home on Norwegian TV, on Eurosports, whatever, were like, Matt, they're really like focusing on you a lot. Kind of NRK, the sort of BBC or the Aussie number Channel 1 did a big feature on me the night before. So there were a lot of people invested in me, which is awesome. So all eyes were on me, at least when I started the race. And then I go and break a pole, right? In the middle of the race. And my friends are like, oh my God, this is made for TV, right? Like kind of just this story where and then at the point I was leading the race. I would never have ended up leading the race, but I'd started at the beginning. I was, maybe I was leading the race at the point. And then I fall and break a pole. And there apparently the TV guys, the pundits are trying to figure out how much time I've lost. And then obviously there's a cutoff, right? There's a time cutoff because you have to finish within a certain time of the winner to get the points needed, etc. And they're all trying to do the math because you don't know. Every time someone faster comes in, the math changes, right? So they're all trying to do the math. My coach is there frantically trying to do the math on his phone, to scream at me every time I come past him, like push harder kind of thing. And he basically did the math and he was like, you're going to be in by like literally a hair. Wow. He like the skin of your teeth, right? Because of the fall. So I finished the race and, obviously I fell, right? And I can get into that in another conversation about how I overcame that in the race and the work I did to overcome failure in the race, which is why I ended up succeeding in it. But I remember just thinking to myself, it's not over yet, right? It's not over yet. And and every time I felt too tired and I needed to stop, I was like, you can't stop now. You have to push through. You have to push through. You have to push through. So I finished the race. I collapsed, very dramatically. And I'm sitting there now waiting for the last guys and girls to finish. And the Chinese athlete is now leading and he finishes, right? So he finishes. I finished number 39, number 40, Alan number 39. Then there was, there's sort of a 30-minute wait till things are calculated. And then all of a sudden, some athlete is disqualified. So we dropped to 38 and 39, right? They had illegal waxing or whatever it was. It was a mistake. And now the points are still not out. And everyone's trying to do the calculation. No one really knows the calculation. It's sort of this, Da Vinci Code of calculations. Some people say we're in, some people say we're not. Some people say it's going to be the skin of a hair. And then they release the points. And it was someone's girlfriend who just runs up to me. She goes, you guys are in. You guys are in. You made it. And then, she showed me on my phone. But it's that point where you just don't believe it unless it's given to you by, the chairman of the IOC or the, the head of FIS or God himself or herself tells you, then you believe it, right? So I sort of, everyone starts jumping and cheering. So I kind of jump in with it. But at that point, I didn't feel it. I was like, oh, wow, we jumped. Yeah, we made it. I made it actually by a minute, so I really didn't make it by the skin of my teeth. I made it by a good margin. Even with the fall, Alan too. And my family's there, his family's there, and we're celebrating. But at the same time, it didn't feel like this because I needed someone to show me with a signature and a stamp notarized or something before I really allowed myself to believe it. And that took several weeks actually. So, wow, it was beautiful because of what happened in the race and how I overcame it. That was what I remember was and is the thing I'll keep with me, that I'm proud of myself for overcoming, because I really did make it difficult for myself in the race. But it really was only a couple of weeks later when I finally had everything sort of, from my National Olympic Committee confirming to me, Matt, you're going. The spot is guaranteed. That they can't take the quota spot away. And, I'm the only athlete and I earned the quota spot. So I am going. I mean, everything's booked and paid for now. So, it's all happening. Wow, incredible experience. Very grateful for it.
And has it hit you yet? Or do you think it's going to hit you when you're carrying the flag out into the San Siro or you line up, in front of 50,000 people there in, Cortina area?
If you'd asked me this question 100 days ago, because bear in mind, I qualify and then I've got a year until I go.
Yeah, which is unique for Winter Olympians. As we know on this show, a lot of Winter Olympians don't qualify to like 2 weeks before the games, essentially. So
correct, right? Because obviously you have a national ranking and then you have to, the Aussies are fighting for 3 spaces and there's several of them, right? Mm-hmm. So, but in the unique case of South Africa, I'm the only athlete, right? So, and I won the only spot. Obviously after a little, we took a bit of time off, of course, because the season finishes, and then I had a child, so it was all perfectly timed. And then you start training again, and then you realize, if you'd asked me at the beginning of summer, Matt, if I could wave a wand and click my fingers and you'd be there today, I would have done that. I would have just skipped the 200 days. Just get me there now. I just want to go now, right? Now I'm of the opinion that, listen, this is the last 91 days, most likely, that I'll ever be training for an Olympics. So enjoy every day. Enjoy the podcast with lovely people like you, Ben, and your wonderful audience. Enjoy everything around that. Enjoy every training day and things of that nature. But recently, I've been posting a little bit about this as well, about how every single day I feel like there's this elephant, metaphorical elephant, which is the Olympics, that just shuffles into my peripheral vision. So every single day, this elephant shuffles in and just blocks a bit more of my view. Therefore, the Olympics becomes more and more of my, conscious psyche, which is sometimes overpowering and, overwhelming, because right now I'm like, I don't really want to do that training session because it sounds too risky. I don't want to hurt myself. I actually don't need to race because I've got the points already. but I'm going to the season openers this week. I'm leaving in 2 days to go to Beitestalen, and I'm in the unique position where I'm going to treat this as race as a test race, as just for fun. Like, go out there, try and actually push yourself to a certain level and hold it, as opposed to push yourself all out and then, you know, blow up or fall because your technique is not good enough at high speed. So, trying to enjoy every moment of it right now, but I can't help but feel very, it's coming, and I just want, you know, I look forward to being there, and yeah.
This is why I love you. This is why I love your story, Matt, because it's sort of, I feel you are in such a unique position, and I'm not saying this in a detriment to yourself, but you're not going there to win a gold medal. Let's be honest. You are going there for that
absolutely not
experience and to do what you can, but you are living this through an incredible journey that you have done so far. And this is where I think that Olympic geek in me can live through someone like you, because I guarantee you, if tomorrow I woke up and podcasting was an Olympic sport and they were like, Ben, you're better than Joe Rogan, you're going to the Olympics, thanks for the, you know, tap on the shoulder, I'm going to be exactly the same as you. It's going to be like, fuck, like I'm going to live every single second of this. But also I do actually have to still compete. That's a small little elephant in the room, as you say. So I love hearing how you describe that, Matt, because I feel that any Olympic geek like us would be living that same experience going to an Olympics in the manner you're going in as well.
Exactly. It's the most amazing experience. And, you know, again, we always talk about it's about the journey, but it's about what you make of the journey, to be honest with you, because you need to make something of the journey, right? And I'm trying to do that by being active on social media and talk about interesting topics that I think are worth talking about in a sport that people don't talk about, actually. It's a little bit of a dying sport in many parts of the world, including the Nordics, actually. The US is where it's really growing. So, you know, I joked earlier about the ski-fluencer title, but I was given that because I've been advocating for the sport, and, you know, and it's not sort of a big-headedness thing, but it's simply, you know, I have brand values for myself, which is to educate, inform, and inspire. And on the education side, that's something I've been really strong in doing, is educating people about the sport, to try it, to get into it, how to do it, when to do it, why to do it. And, you know, I think that's appreciated by the ski community. So going back to the fact that it's a Nordic sport, Nordic dominated, you know, who am I, a small nation coming into the sport? I've been welcomed with open arms because, like you said, I'm not medal contending, which means, you know, if I trained the same as the guys trying to win a medal, to be completely honest with you, I'm fighting for 68th place and 78th place, right? There's no difference to me if I come 68th or 78th. There's really no difference. I don't get an extra medal. I'm getting money for that. As long as I beat Alan, caveat. You know, so I'm still going to be the fittest, happiest, healthiest version of myself on the day at the race, to shine my country and myself in the best light. But instead of training, you know, 35 hours a week, if I train, you know, 20 hours a week or whatever, and I spend an extra 5 hours on all that social media that the guys and girls training 35 hours can't, that's a greater contribution to the community and the sport than me spending another 15 hours a week trying to be medal contending, which is, I'm still going to be in the 68th to 78th place, right? I just might be 67th. So yeah, that's where I've been pretty pragmatic about my ambitions in the sport. Not to take away from those who are going to be medal contending, you know, you go for it. We need you in the sport to push the boundaries, to win the golds, to set world records. But we also need the guys and girls at the bottom and the middle also realizing what else can they add outside of sport, because you are more than your results. And
that's what I love what you're doing with that, Matt, because again, from Australia, you know, outside of our great athletes and how, as I said, you know, they get a bit of attention on the sport. It's only every 4 years. It's only every 4 years for about 5 minutes that anybody in this country will go, oh, cross-country skiing's a thing. And part of why I love the Winter Olympics so much is because we see sports in this part of the world that we never see before. And yes, all the attention is going to be on the people from Australia, our great athletes who have got a chance of a medal. Absolutely fantastic. They deserve that. But I'm also very interested in these sports where if I'm in Norway and I'm turning on TV, this is going to be what's prime time. And I watched some of the footage of the World Championship to see those crowds that any Australian, any South African would look at and go, there's that many people at a skiing event? Like, what the hell? It's insane. And for you to be able to shine a light on that, be it for people who are maybe fallen out of love of the sport in these big nations, or Team Avalanche, you know, the Philippines, the Mexicos, the Saudi Arabias of the world, where this is a sport where there could be young boys and girls watching. Oh, I could do that. I could be the next Matt C. Smith. There we go.
Exactly. Exactly. It's all for the greater of the community, to be honest with you. And of course, I'm an individual athlete and I'm focusing on my goals and ambitions too. But I think we can uplift everyone. And the one thing I've learned from this journey is the more we uplift others, the more we are uplifted by others.
Yeah, exactly. And you're also a podcast host too, Matt. You're doing a sort of a podcast on the journey. Tell us about that. We're having a bit of a chat about it off air. But I mean, having a bit of fun with it. Something you've done before in the past, I believe, as well. But how great is podcasting, Matt?
Love it. I mean, we get to meet great people like you, my friend, and it is a great way.
I'll give you your money for that later on. Thanks for that. That's
cheers. I'm expecting it, by the way, we're an hour now, so that's $1,000 an hour. Yeah.
Yep. Australian dollars, I hope.
For sure. Don't say Norwegian kroners, they're in the toilet. But no, dude, so I started this podcast as part of my media kind of portfolio in this journey called Countdown to Cortina. Right, which is basically just me counting down every single week with a different guest across different disciplines, much like yourself, talking about different disciplines. So I've had speed skaters, I've had curlers, I've had obviously cross-country skiers and things, skeleton athletes, etc. Obviously Winter Olympics focused, although I have had a Norwegian swimmer because he was the Muffin Man. If you remember him from Paris, the guy who became viral famous.
Yeah.
Remember
that's
that guy?
Right. Yeah. We always say, every time we get a
Christensen?
Paris athlete on, we talk about the muffin. So thanks to him, because otherwise we wouldn't be talking about this muffin. So, yeah.
And lucky for Norway being so dominant, I've got all these athletes around me, genuinely. So, no, but it's been amazing. And I think the best thing about doing these types of things is actually the conversations that I've had with people like Johan Olav Koss, the 3-time gold medalist from Lillehammer in '94. Yeah. He taught me something about belief in your training. Scott Mina, I'm also doing, of course, Paralympians as well. He's para-Nordic skier for Team GB, lost his legs in Afghanistan. He's the real hero in all of this, really, and he was a fountain of philosophical leadership and thought-provoking ways of being an athlete. So, honestly, I love this podcast. Binge listen to it. But when you want to listen to something as well, go and check out my episode with Scott Mina. He is just wonderful the way he talks about balancing life, his family, being a professional athlete, going to the Olympics, which he has already been, winning a silver at the World Championships in Trondheim, and now he'll be in Milano Cortina with me as well. So that's really the value of a podcast, is the people you speak with and who you share that with as well. So Countdown to Cortina, add it to your list if you don't mind.
Who's the dream guest? If right now I said here's a magical ticket, you can have anyone you want.
I have it, actually. I have it. So Bjorn Darley.
Oh, wow.
He is the GOAT in cross-country skiing. Yeah. So he was before Johannes Klæbo, who's now the current GOAT. He's the sort of, he was the Federer, or he's the McEnroe basically of his day. Probably same era, actually, 70s, 80s, sorry, and 90s. This is the cool thing about Norway, by the way. I have access to all these great people because, I actually live in the same, it's a small city. I live around them, to be honest. I go to the grocery store and it's Marit Bøgen, the all-time medal leading, she's the medal leader, male and female. She's the leader. I think Bjorn Dali is number 2, actually.
Yeah, that's right.
I see her regularly. Anyway, and in Norway, the good thing about Norwegians, and this is a tip to anyone who ever wants to reach out to someone in Norway, Norwegians don't have a hierarchical structure. So you can reach out to the CEO, or in my case, I just asked someone who knew him. I said, hey, you wouldn't introduce me to Bjorn Darley, would you? He lives in Switzerland because he's a billionaire now, and he's super successful. But I was like, I want to get him on my podcast with this at the beginning with no listeners yet before I even started it. Someone introduces me. He responded almost immediately.
Wow,
I was surprised by.
Wow,
hey, yeah, no problem. And I said, can we have a prep chat? Had a prep chat with him. And then the best part is he said, listen, I'm going to be at my summer house in Sweden. Just come to my summer house and record, stay for the day. Like, we'll have a barbecue. This guy is literally the GOAT. And then that didn't happen because of holiday clashes. So then he's like, well, I'm back in Norway for Christmas. Come to my winter cabin. We'll go for a ski. So I'm going to go in about 3 weeks' time to record with him a Christmas special with Bjorn Darley in his cabin and go for a ski with him.
I've never felt so small in my life. But here you are doing this shit, and then in 3 weeks you're about to go skiing with Bjorn Darley. All right, okay, that's amazing. That's absolutely incredible. That's
just because I asked.
We actually haven't had a Norwegian on this show. Weirdly enough, so. Yeah, maybe now I know that there's no hierarchy in Norway. Perhaps we just, send a couple of cold emails out, and who knows where it will land, essentially. So
I recommend Astrid Slind. Astrid Slind.
All right.
She's 30. Oh, I should be careful here. She's in her 30s, and she's peaked now. She's peaked now.
Okay.
And she's been peaking for a while now, but she didn't make the national teams and when she was in the selection and Olympics when she was in her 20s in her quote unquote prime, and now she's in her mid to late 30s and she's really peaking.
Wow.
And she's testament. She's also just excellent in English and all that kind of stuff. Really good character. She's on my team as well. But she would be a great athlete because she's got a cool story about perseverance, about actually not making it into the top cut, never making it to the Olympics. And now she's in the best opportunity she's ever been to be at the Olympics. And she's past it in terms of traditional age brackets for what she should be doing in the sport. Yet she's the most dominant and she's really just leading the charge for what can be done, which I think would resonate with your audience as well.
Well, we're always down for connections, Matt. So by all means, pass our details and we won't say no to that. We're going to get to our wrap-up questions here, Matt, in just one moment. But actually, one question. The time of recording, this has got nothing to do with the Olympics, but I've got to ask this question as a football soccer fan. Is Norway still non-stop partying right now? First time in the Men's World Cup in 28 years? This is insane, right?
Wild. And for everyone's context, Norway just they qualified for the World Cup.
Spanked Italy. Was it 4-1? Ridiculous.
4-1, 2 4-1s back to back.
Jesus, Italy. What's going on there?
Yeah. Exactly right. So that, and then, obviously we have Haaland and Ødegaard. He was injured though, but it's just been amazing. And I'll be honest with you, I've never been a big football fan, not for any other reason than being South African, that we are more rugby fans, right? But the first 2 football games I've watched in the last decade were the last 4 days, when I watched last night and the one on Thursday. So the English like to say it's coming home, right? I think the Norwegians need to say, kom hjem.
Okay,
It's coming back home.
My very first Men's World Cup I remember watching was 98 in France, and Norway, the last one. South Africa made their debut at 98. I remember that vividly. This is before the Socceroos made our return to the World Cup, and so I have fond memories of watching Norway and South Africa at that World Cup. I know South Africa have also qualified for this World Cup, which is great. And Norway obviously very handy in the women's game. They've won a couple of Olympic gold World Cups, of course, along the way. But for the men's game, I mean, massive deal. So I was excited to see that Norway. And Australians have not gotten over 2006 when Italy cheated their way against us in the round of 16 at the 2006 World Cup. So we're always happy to see the Italians lose in men's football. So, thank you, Norway. That's all I just want to say. So,
You're welcome.
They've got to go through those qualifying rounds again, Italy. Don't choke yet again, all right? Wrap-up questions, Matt. These are a mix of fun and deep and everything along the lines. I'm going to start off with the one thing that you never leave home without when traveling to a competition. And you're not allowed to say skis because that's the obvious answer.
I'm going to say woolly slippers.
Woolly slippers. I like that. There you go. Yeah. Are they actually for competition or just
it's cold?
Get home at night, put in the hotel?
I get some looks. When you're putting ski boots on, boots are uncomfortable after a while. You want to put some boots on, these fluffy slippers. You're just driving, getting in the car anyway. I put them on straight after the race. I get looks. They're Uggs. They're Aussie.
Hey, Uggs are a national identity in this part of the world. That's hilarious. Sure. The funniest thing Australians find about Uggs, right, is, Uggs is this like high-end fashion brand. Like when I was in New York, like on Fifth Avenue, Ugg, like, oh, it's fancy. Uggs are just what you put on your feet at the end of the day. You don't give a shit. Like you're in the suburbs, you're drinking a beer, you're watching the footy. They're not like meant to be fashionable. So I don't know how they're so high-end now. It's ridiculous. But, someone's rich off them, so that's all that matters. A traditional superstition you follow before every big competition. Stumped him.
I have one. No, I have one. But I was just thinking about the best way to deliver it. So visualizing finishing the race, visualizing finishing the race. That's a sort of something I always do. I try to visualize the race and finishing. Okay. That's something I try to do. Visualization, I think, is very important.
And not breaking the pole along the way and losing.
No, exactly. Visualizing finishing the race in one piece, skis and poles included.
Yeah. Alan behind you, in your face.
Yeah.
South Africa 1, Mexico 0, going along that way. A song that's on every one of your pre-competition playlists, no matter what.
You get what you give, isn't it? Da-da, da-da,
oh, yeah. Good song.
Yeah, that's like my feel good song. It's a great song. It's a really feel good song.
Yep.
A bit of guitar in there, but yeah, you get what you give, I think is the name of the song.
Are you allowed
The Radicals, I think, something like that.
Is it the New Radicals? New Radicals, maybe. Is it?
Yes, the New Radicals.
The New Radicals.
Good shout.
Yeah,
not the old ones, the new ones.
Yeah, the old ones, they suck. The new ones, great.
They suck.
Are there competitions you're allowed to keep like earphones in, like and kind of listen to music?
No, only no. But interestingly, the Norwegians are the only team that I've seen just before a race, like headphones on, laser focused, not talking to anyone. The Aussies are there like, yeah, mate, joking about obviously barbecues and stuff like that. The Aussies are there like having a good laugh, the Americans too. And then the Norwegians are there, no discredit to them because they are the world champions and the best. They're there, headphones on, super locked in, super focused. They're about to start a boxing match, like they are not messing around, right? Everyone else is laughing. So yeah, they're the only people I see with headphones.
Is it a case of like, you're in Norway right now, but like I can imagine the lead up to a Winter Olympics just 24/7 winter sports right now. Like, I mean, if they don't win like 20 gold, it's a national. I mean, you talked about back in '88 when that happened, but nowadays, because in Australia, if we don't win like whatever amount of gold medals, it's a national travesty in the Summer Olympics. Is that like what it is for Norway in the winters?
Yeah, there's a great expectation.
Yeah.
And in the World Championships, their ladies came second to the Swedes, which is worse than breaking a pole in the race because you don't lose to the Swedes. So yeah, there's a real national pride, especially against Sweden. It used to be against Russia. Obviously, they're not competing, so it's all to beat Sweden.
So it's more Sweden than Finland. Is Sweden are the big Norwegian rivals? It's Norway and Sweden.
Yeah. Finland have athletes, but Finland aren't very dominant right now. To be honest, they have a few good athletes like Niskanen and a few others, but it's definitely Norway, Sweden right now, both male and female.
Who is
the men are better?
Okay,
female are better in Sweden.
Outside of like, I'm thinking like your cricket and your rugby and that sort of stuff. Who's like South Africa's big sporting rival? Like, is there an African country in Africa that you sort of look at as like they're our big rivals, or do you sort of are more looking towards your England's, Australia's, New Zealand's because they're sort of the sports you're traditionally competing against in?
Yeah, I think to be honest, it's a traditional kind of tri-nations, right? Oz and New Zealand, right? I think we have that kind of colonial, rivalry, really. You'd have to ask. I mean, football, I don't really know, to be honest with you. Again, Bafana. We have our football team just qualified for the World Cup, as you said. But I guess an African team, maybe Nigeria, maybe Ivory Coast, someone like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you get more pleasure beating the All Blacks or the Wallabies?
Well, the All Blacks are harder to beat, so I'd say the All Blacks.
Touché.
I think the All Blacks. I mean, exactly. I mean, but you guys beat us in the 3 games we had, and then we won the 2 of 3, I think. But I think listen, like the haka, it's too iconic not to want to beat, right? So, and respect. So the All Blacks. I think even for you guys, it'll be the All Blacks, not even us, right? So
yeah, I lived in New Zealand for a bit, and the one time they're allowed to gloat is in rugby. It's not often that Australians get shit from New Zealanders about losing, but rugby pretty much. Other than that, we shit all over them, so it's fine. The most unexpected or funny direct message that you've ever gotten, besides being asked to be on this podcast.
Can I say that? So, are you familiar with the fin dom? The concept?
Fin dom concept. I am not, Matt. Please update me on the. I don't know where this is going, but I'm intrigued.
It's about to take a wild twist. Financial domination.
Okay, all right. Not where I was thinking, but I have a bad mind apparently.
Yeah, well, this is bad in that sense, right? It's someone gets sexual kicks from being financially dominated by someone.
Wow.
By sending them money. Okay. And them. So I've had some guy reach out to me saying, "Hey, listen, I'm into FinDom. You'd be a great dom. Can I give you the control to my bank account, and you have to give me money, and I have to beg for it, and that bought my house." No, I didn't. No, but I've had that. I had a message. That's you asked. Just it was top of my mind. I kindly said no.
You know what just blows my mind about this question is just when you think you've heard it all, you haven't.
No.
This is the best question I think I ask on this show because you realize there are some fucked up people in this world, and I love it. So FinDom.
Financial dominatrix. Google it after.
I'm going to have fun Googling a lot of things after this episode.
You seem a bit excited, Ben.
Too excited. What is the weirdest thing that you have ever eaten in an international competition, and did you like it? I just want to start that question by saying you're in Norway. The 2 countries we always get answers for this one are Norway and China. So you're probably used to eating weird crap.
Yeah. Okay. So you know what? Norway has like a bun tradition. They're called bulla, right? These sort of like buns, right? And they come in all shapes and sizes and flavors. And it's carbs and sugar, so it's kind of perfect, right? So and it's also like white flour, it's easy to digest, all that kind of stuff. You can squeeze it into a ball like this and swallow it if you want, right? And they're always sweet. You never have a non-sweet one. It's a treat, right? And then one time, there was a very unassuming looking bulla there, and I took it up, and it was full of like pesto and just things you don't expect in it. And you take a bite in it thinking it's one thing and see another thing. And then you think it's off or something like that. So maybe not the most exciting one, but a savory bulla, which really threw me off guard and almost made me throw up and gag because it was not what I was expecting to eat.
If you're expecting sweetness, yeah, I can imagine that. Here's just a random question, because whenever we sort of get someone on from the show from a country we've not spoken to, and one that I'm maybe not too familiar with their cuisine, what's South African cuisine? What are you eating in South Africa?
You actually made me think of something else there, which is bultong. Which is not a bull's tongue, but bultong is basically dried meat. It's jerky. Jerky is the best way to describe it, but it's so much better than jerky because it's juicy and it's moist and it's dried meat. They basically take like a fillet or sort of sirloin or whatever it is, a big chunk of it, like 2-3 kilograms slab of it, and they hang and dry it with lots of nice spices. And it's a way of preserving meat in their days when you go into the savannah, right? So it's a delicacy now, and you have it at a we call it a braai, you call it a barbie. It's always a bowl of bultong. And actually, to be honest, to answer that question again, I would say bultong because it is, and also you mentioned it, you had a protein bar before you worked out. No, you should have it after because protein's for recovery. And it is great protein, but it's also dehydrated. So it's air dried. It's so the flavors condense, right? So you have too much of that, and you're dying for thirst. And I had some of that before a race once, and that was the worst idea ever because it's like, yeah, what do you want to do before a race? I'll have a dried steak. I'll have a dried ass steak with lots of spices and seasoning, which make your stomach a bit funky. And then you go and do a race, and you're like, why didn't I have a gel? I should have stuck with the gel.
And that's why you broke your pole. That's when you discovered.
Exactly.
There you go. That's what it was. On the topic of food, your ultimate guilty pleasure meal after a big competition.
I don't think it's that guilty. I mean, spaghetti bolognese or pizza. Pizza's just so easy. It's not even. I'm not even guilty about it. I love it. And that's the one thing about doing a very.
You're going to the right country for the Olympics, I think.
Yeah, 100%. It is. The Olympics asked me that. How do you feel about it being in Italy? I was like, oh my god, we're coming to the home. We're paying homage to athletes' food, pasta and pizza. Are you kidding me?
I'm very at least when I was in Paris, I was doing a lot of walking, right? So like every morning, your hotel, here's your freaking croissant. And I'm just stealing your way of saying it. It sounds so much more fancy. The pastries, everything, right? It's very French. But I was doing a lot of walking. So I'm like, okay, I'm not too bad with this. I'm hoping for the love of God in Italy, I'm doing a lot of walking during the Olympics because I'm going to be eating pizza. I'm going to be eating pasta. I'm just loading up the carbs, right? So, and I'm not competing in the Olympics. So you've at least got a nice event you can do to burn those off. So I'll see how we go. I'm actually very intrigued for this one, Matt, because you've done a lot of sports, as you said. If you could swap sports for a day with another Olympian, what event would you choose and how do you think you'd fare?
Let's go with rowing.
Yeah, okay.
Let's go with rowing because you're on the water.
Yep.
You get a bit of a tan on.
Yep.
Cross country skiing is not conducive for a tan unless it's really sunny and you just get burnt because your skin is so pale and pasty and it's still cold. A very weird, jarring thing. But I think rowing, because rowing, I'm also assuming I'd have the body of a rower. Of course, I'm just going to go with that. Yeah. You said swap, right? You said swap body as well. Yeah. So being, super tall and super athletic and carrying the boat out in tiny shorts. Don't ask me why I like those, but I do. And a little bit of spandex didn't hurt anybody. Back to the fin dog.
You shared a sauna with Taron Egerton, right? You're letting it hang out. So
that's true.
The shorts are there. You're showing it off. Come on. What
exactly. Doing. So I think rowing, that would be cool because it's a cool spectator sport as well. Yeah. It's very sprint to the finish. So yeah, I go rowing.
That's a powerful sport too, rowers and just that. I mean, I hate the rowing machine at the gym, so it's you got to be quite good at that to do that one. Sure. Here's one of my favorite questions. We touched on movies. You touched on who would play you, so you might have already answered this. If your Olympic journey were a movie, Matt, what would the title be and who would play you? I feel you're going to get him. If there's any guest I've ever had on this show, that there's actually going to be him. No disrespect to our great guest, but I think this man right here is going to get a movie on him one day. So just putting it out there.
It's maybe in the pipeline. Yeah. I mean, listen, I have all these running titles like 0 to Olympics in 3 years. Beginner to, entrepreneur to Olympic titles like that, which is sort of just basically, it is a 0 to story, right? It is the book for dummies on cross country skiing, by Matt Smith kind of thing. And also just, I guess it's a journey of sort of not, I had a 1 in 100 million chance kind of thing, and it was like, okay, but that's a chance, right? And there were times when I wanted to give up, to be honest. And I had Alan and other people around me who helped me stay on the path. Said, listen, Matt, I said, you know what, Alan, you go for 26. I'll go for 2030. And he's like, Matt, listen, you don't know what tomorrow has in store for it. You don't know what your life situation is. Right now is always the best opportunity, the best time, So to anyone who's always putting things off, as am I with other parts of my life, I'll do it tomorrow, right? Today is always the best day to do it, right? Tomorrow is, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, right? So it is a story there. So I think, I'm going to go with Taron Egerton since I've let him know.
And you've seen more of him than most of some people.
I have some dirt on him. Yeah. Maybe he was the guy asking me about Finn Dom. Whispered in my ear.
I'm not going to ask how big it was. That's inappropriate. But I'll say ChatGPT like to put together a poster. We can change this for one of those titles, but they've literally just gone with the Snowbok because why not? And I'll hold this up. Our audio listeners go to our video version. But this is their what they've said there.
The Snowbok.
There you are.
Oh, that's amazing, mate. Send me that, please. That's awesome. I love it.
I will do. The people behind you there. You've got the ghost Snowbok and the very South African people there. She's loving life there. She is. She's loving you.
Oh, I love it. Look at amazing. They've been representative of Africa as well. Look at that. That's very good.
And they've actually gotten the flag right. I swear to God, sometimes ChatGPT, they look at a flag and they change the colours up. So, there you go.
Great job.
The Snowbok.
That's amazing. I love it. I mean, that is actually a better name, to be honest, the Snowbok. It should be that.
Yeah, that goes. Actually, you know who you look like in that photo? You got a bit of Tom Holland about you in that photo there.
Yeah, I'll take that. Tom Holland. Yeah, has to be a younger version of me as well, right? So perfect. You even got the kit right. Wow, that's amazing. Right? Good job.
I love how they've literally written the words above it. South Africa. Although actually, I think they've spelled it South Africa. I don't think you can make that out on what I'm showing you there.
No way.
But they've missed the F, so they've actually said South Africa. Wow. So, great nation.
Actually, he still hasn't quite got it, huh?
Yeah, apparently not. The one question you're tired of being asked, Matt, and what's the one you wish people would ask you instead?
I'm tired of being asked, so tell us about your training. What does the average week of training look like? Obviously everyone's interested because they have this idea that Olympians are, I don't sleep, I just train, right? Oh yeah, that's what we expect of an Olympian, right? The truth is training changes every single week. My coach literally just before this podcast goes, hey, I've readjusted things for this week based on last week, right? Because I've got races coming. So there is no average week of training. I understand if you're training for one race, a marathon, all this kind of stuff, then, you can have periods, but I train, so that I would prefer the question of, hey, so what are you working on right now athletically? Like, what does that look like? Because you train in training blocks. So I'll be in like a 3 to 6 week block of intervals as in like high intensity, working on my anaerobic ability or my aerobic ability, which is the low intensity, high volume stuff. So my weeks swing where it's like more training at low intensity, therefore more time. And then other weeks where it's less time, but more intense, right? And then there's recovery periods where I have a rest day a week, and some periods where I don't have a rest day at all. When I'm in the ski season, I don't have rest days really before maybe a race or whatever, but I'm still out there. So, I think it's like, what are you working on right now? And how do you look at your, because if you think about your fitness, you're trying to peak at a period, right? So I'm actually trying to peak in kind of end of January, early February. So, it's like, how's the, how are you trending, right? You got to have these things in perspective. Like if I peak now, like some athletes who need to still qualify for their country, right? Obviously that's not that, that's not, I could try do that and maintain it, but I need to peak in February. So that's what I'm focused on. So I'm in a good place right now. I'm going to go this race end of the week. I'm not going to be the best, but I'm going to go there for race experience. And don't look at other people's training programs. Build a program for yourself and believe in it, because it's the belief in it. Whether the training program is good or not, it's the belief in it that will make the difference.
Good answer. I need to at the gym tomorrow. Thanks for that one. That's handy. The last question for you, Matt. The deep one we ended on with. What's one lesson you've learned from losing that has shaped you more than winning?
Well, I've never won, so
could be an easy
but
answer.
Arguably I have. Yeah, but arguably I have, right? And I think I've won massively in many areas of my life. But I regularly come last. Actually, I might even come last this weekend because Alan's going to be pushing it harder than I am because he's sort of has different goals. The one thing I've learned about failing is a smile goes such a long way, right? And when I was falling over in the World Championships and the one opportunity I had, I'd invested $100,000 US dollars at this point in this thing, and there's so much riding on. My family's there. There's people, tens of thousands of people cheering for me. TV have given me a feature. Why not give it to someone else who's actually going to make it, right? If I go and fall and break a pole. But in that moment, I realized, listen, Matt, get up. I laughed it off. So you see me on TV, I go, And when I realized my pole's broken, and I immediately sprang into action. All right, the race isn't over yet, right? So from failure in those moments, I realized humor is your friend. And, to be cliched, it really ain't over until it's over. Because I could have easily in that moment gone, okay, Matt, well, yeah, silly me. Well, this is always a silly dream anyway. Oh, well, 2 years making. Yeah, I'll always be known as the guy who didn't make it or whatever. At least I laugh about it, self-deprecate my way through the pain. But in that moment, I said, no, we're still on. Let's go. At least I'm going to go out trying to make up that time and that silly mistake. And when I finished that race, I was like, you know what? If I'd given up at that point and given in, I would have beaten myself up. But I didn't give up. And if I still didn't make it, I would have said, listen, I spent the next 80% of that race giving absolutely everything and more. And I still didn't make it, then, hey, I'm proud. I can leave today going, you know what? I made it. I didn't make the cut. Kudos to everyone who did. And I would have had potentially another try later. But yeah, so a long-winded answer. Sorry, but...
It's why we save it to last, because we feel it always ends on a nice note and inspirational too, Matt. So we appreciate that. It's been such a pleasure to hear your story and to learn about it and just keep hearing about this amazing transition from not being an Olympian to being an Olympian and everything about that. And obviously people can follow the journey, as you said, on your podcast, social media. Where plug it away. So you've already plugged the podcast, but
thank you.
Everywhere else that people can follow you on this journey?
Matt C. Smith _ on Instagram. I'm the Snowbok or Snowbok on TikTok. Countdown to Cortina is the podcast. Add me on LinkedIn. Why not? Matt C. Smith is the name. And yeah, appreciate it. Thank you for the support, man. Good to have some Aussies behind me as well. I do love Oz. I have to say that. I have you talk about a kinship, but there really is an Aussie South African kinship. And, one of my ways to contribute back to the sport was to hire an intern over summer and pay them, a fair price for their work. And of all the people who applied for the internship, Sevi De Campo did.
Wow.
So I actually, for the last 6 months, have hired Sevi De Campo. He's just transitioned out now as the season starts because he needs to focus on his Olympic journey.
Yeah.
But he's been working with me, for me, and we've had a great friendship that's built out of it. He's done some great work for me. So, there's been this cute little relationship there, which I believe the Olympics just did an article on him called "The Hardest Working Intern in Cross-Country Skiing."
Wow.
And it's just funny because it's a South African-Aussie relationship again.
Yeah.
And it's not even a rivalry because he'll smoke me without even trying. So it's just this beautiful narrative that the sport has actually given us all. And again, you know this, I don't have to tell you this, and our friends listening to this will know this too, but it was Nelson Mandela who said sport has the unique opportunity to unite people across borders, across cultures, across colors, across everything, religions. And it is so true that's why the Olympics coming, I cannot wait to get there and just see so many nations, and just forget the nations, to see the people that I've met and those that I haven't met, but I know of. And we're all on the level playing field there, right? Yeah. Forget it, who's winning golds or whatever. People are friendly, people are welcoming. Oh, cool, South Africa. Oh, cool, Oz, Italy, you name it. So, what a gift. And I'm super grateful to finally become the Snowbok. I didn't make the Springboks, but I'll take the Snowbok.
Snowbok works. And I'll tell you one thing, I know, speaking on behalf of my country, that, we have a rivalry with you guys in a couple of sports, but I don't think we lose any sleep once we lose to the South Africans. It's only the New Zealanders and the English we care about losing to. So South Africa, we're generally okay with that. Matt, absolute pleasure, mate. Thank you so much, and best of luck with everything moving forward.
Thanks, Ben. Ben C. Waterworth.